Hello out there. We're on the air. Welcome back, everybody. But before you look at my face anymore, I'd like to show you the view this morning. Pretty nice. It's a beautiful day here in Canada, in the prairies. Let's get this thing straight. The computer's humming again. I don't know what the heck's going on here. Last night we had our internet go down for about 4 or 5 hours. And yesterday's show was dog shit quality. So I apologize for that. I don't know what's going on. Seems to be working. Things are just running really hot here. Maybe I just need to close a couple tabs here. You probably don't need 100 tabs open as a general rule of thumb. But anyways, good morning, everybody. Jason is in the house. Francis is in the house. Crypto Heathen. Tommy D. James Bond is on the road, but he's still here. Jason got a fresh dump here in also the prairies, but a little bit further west. Rock and roll. Good morning, wonderful Bitcoiners. We are winning. We are absolutely winning. The cool thing about Bitcoin is that nothing happens overnight. And everybody likes to tout it as a pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, get rich quick scheme. But those who know Bitcoin know that it is not that. It's actually quite difficult to become wealthy off of Bitcoin. The buying part is easy. The storing part is harder, but the patience is the hardest. And so we're going through this whole thing. We're going through this transition from the old system into the new system. The new system based on trust and honesty. And it's a slow process, but you are here every morning. I'm here every morning, and we're pushing this thing forward. Rick, good morning. Smash the like, please. Very courteous. It's a good point, though. He's got a great point. Smash the like. It's free to do, but you don't have to. Everything's voluntary. Bob, good morning. Good morning, Degens. Are Bitcoiners Degens? I feel like we're the reverse Degens. I don't know. I feel like anybody holding dollars right now is more of a degenerate than us. And especially those holding the Bitcoin journey. 3 minutes in. Welcome back to the daily Bitcoin journey. Actionable and logical discussion for Bitcoiners and for future Bitcoiners. Oh, we're freezing again here. Fuck's sakes. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answer is here, everybody. Hopefully it works. Does my sound okay? Like, is everything running okay? Just maybe give me a thumbs up in the chat or whatever needs to happen. It's tough for me to really follow everything while I'm trying to think and talk out loud. So with that, let's close a few things here. Jeez Louise. Pretty frustrating. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate that. Sounds like we're good. I'm going to give a quick shout out to zap.stream. I would highly encourage you to check out zap.stream. You can find this exact chat, this exact stream by going to bitcoinjourney.ca, bitcoinjourney.ca/stream. And we should be live in there. Oh, maybe we're not. Are we? Yeah, we're live. A couple people watching there. Letha's over there. Yeah, I feel like it's yeah, Trudeau is probably listening. Fucker. I just feel like it's a much better, more interactive on there. You can do a lot of cool things. So you can actually set up a goal for zaps. So the nice thing about zap.stream is like we got a couple different things within the Bitcoin journey. Some of them require a membership, a monthly recurring membership. But if you feel like giving any back, or you feel like zapping some other people within the community, you can do that in the chat, or you can zap the show. So it's pretty cool. And I set up a goal for zaps on there for a new snowblower. So that's what we're going for with the show. The main goal is to get a new snowblower. So check out zap.stream. You can go to bitcoinandjourney.ca/stream. That's where the Bitcoiners are hanging out. That's where I think everything will kind of move to eventually. But in the meantime, we still got YouTube. Trudeau is listening 100%. Actually, Trudeau's too worried about covering up his 15 different scandals he's got going on right now. So he doesn't really have too much time to tune into the daily Bitcoin journey. He should be. He should be learning about Bitcoin. It would help our country significantly. But it's okay. Other people are doing it for him. We got, I think we're the third or fourth highest Bitcoin miners for Canada. Jose is also in the zap.stream chat. I've been playing around a little bit here with Albie, with a couple different things. I just zapped Jose on zap.stream. Pretty cool. Gonna give Letha a little zap too while we're here. I don't know. I just like it. It's a lot more fun. I love the YouTube live chat, but I think that if we can get into a rhythm of getting onto zap.stream and moving some of the hardcore Bitcoiners over there, I think that's kind of the play. So a couple zaps over there for the people in zap.stream. Anyways, let's keep the show rolling here. We got a lot to get through. So let's start with the metrics. We are currently at block height 835541. Heck of a deal right now on Bitcoin layer 1. If you're doing any sort of transacting this morning, you can send some Bitcoin for only 10 sats per VByte. 10 sats per VByte. The idea here for anybody new to the show, every time you send a transaction on Bitcoin layer 1, you have to set a transaction. And depending on the time, it's kind of like supply and demand. It's like an auction style. So if the fees are low, the miners will pick up your transaction. It gets put into a block, and that transaction will live there forever. That's the beauty of transacting on layer 1. You can also use things like, which is a much faster and cheaper way to do it, but it doesn't have the same sort of vibe to it. I think the layer 1 will be used for different things in the future. Most people won't be transacting on layer 1 in 10 years from now. But there are people doing some cool things. There's some inscriptions. As much as I do not like what's happening there with the ordinals, I do think that there will be a use case for that in the future. And we're going to talk about that briefly in a couple minutes here. The price today, Google has let me use their services again today. Good. Okay, so geez, the mouse isn't okay. We're in a weird spot here. Am I what is it? OSD? I don't know. When you're Pomp's in the house. Good morning, my friend. What is up? So the block height 835537, cheap, transacting on layer 1 today, 17 sats. I just saw it was 10 sats per VByte though. So if you do need to consolidate any UTXOs, now would be the time to do it. I'm going to do one right after the show, actually. I got some Bitcoin to send. Price today, 68. That's not right. Did I do this morning? What is the price today? Let's just check it out. $64,056. Sorry about that. Must have missed a few here. So forget about these metrics. We're shutting that off right now. Oops, I knew I was forgetting some today. Rock and Roll says layer 1 Bitcoiners will be the future elites. Congrats to all who got in. That is the truth. Not everybody will transact on layer 1. Not everybody will have their own UTXO. If you are watching this, if you own some Bitcoin right now, you are going to be very wealthy in the future, without a doubt. The show today is actually going to be a fun one. We're talking about the best and worst case scenarios for Bitcoin. So I'm actually I got two different things, the best case for Bitcoin and the worst case for Bitcoin. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. But before we do that, let's talk about some news here. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. We're going to start with this. Not really a quote. It's a longer one, but I think it's worth reading. So this is a post. I don't know where it's from. Came across it on Telegram, but it says 3 reasons why I don't waste my time with Bitcoin analytics. While you sit in front of your PC watching the latest YouTube videos about Bitcoin, which you are, I'm at the park playing with my dog. While you search Reddit for hints how to time the market, I'm making a small road trip with my girlfriend. Every 30 minutes to check the price. I don't even have a hot wallet or watch. No, hot or watch only wallet installed. Do you really think you will care if you bought at 50,000, 60,000, or 70,000 once it hits a million in 5 or 10 years from now? I buy Bitcoin every time I get money, no matter the price. Then I transfer it to my cold wallet, check the blockchain for confirmations, and then forget about it until I get paid again. It is it's just my opinion. Don't forget to live your life to the fullest. You don't have to wait until you are rich to have fun in life. First one, in terms of the YouTube videos, great points there. In terms of the YouTube videos, I mean, I consume Bitcoin content pretty much all day in my life when I'm doing other stuff. But the point with that is with Bitcoin, um, YouTube, and furthering your education within Bitcoin. I do think that there is a definite need for that. And the better you can understand Bitcoin, the more conviction you're going to have. And not only that, you can actually build within Bitcoin. And that's one thing that this show is focused on and going to be focused on into the future is not only just buying Bitcoin and holding on to it, but finding ways to earn Bitcoin and playing through different scenarios in terms of when you actually go to spend that Bitcoin, how does that look? And setting yourself up for that. But the second part there was about, living your life. And yesterday on the Living in the Future, a private show after the YouTube show, I read a post from Hal Finney from 11 years ago, and he was talking about Bitcoin, how he got started, his interactions with Satoshi. But he also said that he was that the best shape of his life when he wrote that, or a couple years before that. And then he was diagnosed with ALS. So he was given about 2 to 5 years to live. He was a marathon runner, very healthy guy, and he got diagnosed with ALS. And so it just goes to show, we focus a lot on Bitcoin. We spend a lot of our time in Bitcoin and interacting online, but it is very important to realize that anything could happen to us today. Anything could happen to our best friends, our spouse, our brothers, our parents today. So just enjoy life, enjoy every day that we have here because we don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen today or tomorrow. And so just enjoy it. That's how I wanted to start the show today because I think that is important. Um, a couple other things in regards to the living in the future private tier. We fired up a group chat the other day. So I think there's about 15, 20 people in there, but it's about 100 times more active than I thought it was going to be. I guess, like I said in the chat, I guess Bitcoiners like talking about Bitcoin. So it's pretty cool. I think it's similar to the Orange Pill in a lot of ways where you can just connect with other Bitcoiners. It's a really safe and private and no spam in there place to talk about Bitcoin for about a quarter of the price of the Orange Pill. So something to consider if you are somebody out there who kind of feels alone in Bitcoin and you want somebody to talk to, bounce ideas off of, share resources back and forth with. I think that alone, that aspect of the membership alone will be worth it. So something to consider. I'm building some really cool things in Bitcoin. Got a couple of things going on. So let's get to the Bitcoin news for today. The Bitcoin news is sponsored by the Bitcoin news. As we announced yesterday, we had the Bitcoin News YouTube channel in the house yesterday. Let's check on Zap.stream quickly. Oh, we're buzzing in there. Jose Letha, we got a couple more people in there. And it is impressive. So in the chat over on Zap.stream, Jose said, Letha, I'm so impressed with how tech savvy you are. And I second that. I second that. It blows my mind how some people, for myself personally, I grew up I was about 15, 16 when the internet really started to take off. And when I didn't get my first cell phone until I was about 17, maybe. So I'm kind of like in that same realm. I'm getting older for sure. But at the same time, I'm very impressed with some of the people who are a little bit older. And one thing I heard, I forget who was talking about the other day in terms of boomers. I don't think boomers, I agree with, he said that boomers aren't an age category. Boomers is a mindset. And I completely agree with that because to me, age is completely irrelevant. You can do whatever you want at any age. It is a little bit harder to learn things as you're older, but at the same time, it's all about your mindset. Everything in life is about your mindset. And even age is just something that humans created to track everything, right? Age is literally it's a common phrase, but it's just a number. And so you can be a boomer if you're 30 years old, if you think like boomers do, but you can also be, somebody who's involved with this kind of stuff and really wants to further themselves, better themselves, and is taking advantage of technology at any age. So I just wanted to, I've kind of been looking for the right time to talk about that, and that was the perfect time to do it. So shout out to Letha and everybody else who's, a little bit older, but still really wanting to take this on because it isn't easy. This getting into Bitcoin, learning Bitcoin is almost a full-time job for a lot of people. And I know that most people are doing it not for themselves, but for their family. So it's important. As Letha says, trying to get my kids involved. Friggin' kids, eh? Okay, well, back to the Bitcoin news. Sorry about that. Back to Bitcoin news. So I wanted to show off Bitcoin News' website because kind of what I go through every morning is their Twitter feed. I look at their posts, some headlines, tap into if I need it, but they actually have a very interactive and very user-friendly website. So this is bitcoinnews.com. You can find anything. There's kind of like the main page here where you can check out the latest breaking news. You can go into adoption. You can go into Lightning and you can read all the different news categories that's going on in there. So very well maintained website, I must say, from Bitcoin News. So with that, we're going to go through the news here today. I'm going to take this off the screen for a sec. A couple things to note from yesterday and today. MicroStrategy bought some more Bitcoin. They got 9,000 more Bitcoin, and they officially own 1% of all the Bitcoin out there, becoming the first public company to do so. 1% of the Bitcoin. So what would that be? 210,000 Bitcoin. 1% of the Bitcoin, first public company to do so. And if you think about that, that's 1 out of 100. So think about how many countries there are. Think about how many companies there are. 330 million companies on Earth. Do you think that those 330 million companies are all going to get to own 1% of Bitcoin? Bitcoin is like nothing else. And usually when in the past, if something like this happened where there was a brand new stock or a brand new investment and MicroStrategy bought up 1% of it, everybody would be like, cool, but wait till they issue more of it or wait till they mine more of it. In this case, the only way that that'll change is if they sell Bitcoin or they lose their Bitcoin. So that's pretty cool. They're going to have 1% of Bitcoin forever because they probably have more than 1% right now because there's only 19.5 million Bitcoin that are actually available in the market. 4 million of those are lost. So he actually has quite a bit more than 1%, but officially 1% ownership. So big shout out to Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. He is doing things right. Whoa, that was a big gulp. Good morning, Mav, my friend, my nostr pal, Mav. Daniel's in the house. Even more than 1% of Bitcoin consider. Yes, exactly. We said you owe me a Pepsi for that one, Daniel. Said that at this exact same time. Litecoin Bitcoin only says, is Wall Street going to eat Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin going to eat Wall Street? Well, by the sounds of it, by looks of it, Bitcoin is going to eat Wall Street whole. Look at this. We got a couple more in here. Francis is in the Zap stream. There we go. There we go. Love to see that. I'm gonna keep that up. Screw it. We're gonna keep up both here. So the next piece of news here is, this was a quick one. This was the Wu-Tang rapper. I forget his name. Wu-Tang rapper, one of the old boys from the Wu-Tang clan. He decided that he was going to put his music on the Bitcoin blockchain using ordinals. So it says that whoever owns the NFT will actually own creative copyright to the music. Don't know how that works. I can't really speak on the ins and outs of that legally, but it's pretty cool. I think there's been a couple artists who have done the same thing on the Bitcoin blockchain, and I expect in the future that will increase. Pretty cool. I don't know if I'd be using Bitcoin for that, though. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I think that as we go along here, one thing I talk about all the time is that there are going to be cryptocurrencies that do have use case and value for stuff like this. I just don't know if Bitcoin blockchain is the place to be doing that, simply because it costs a lot. So you could do it for a much cheaper and effective way, I think, using a different cryptocurrency. So there's a nice comment in the Zaptot stream. It says, time to move over, I think. This is what Jor wants. I don't know if it's what I want. I just think it's cooler in there. Like, I watch a couple shows on Zaptot stream every week, and it is so much more interactive than just a YouTube channel. The nice thing about YouTube is I can bring up comments and stuff. I like that. And eventually, I'm sure we'll figure out a way to migrate both. But we're not there yet. Jerry loves freedom. Good morning, my friend. That's a new face in the chat. BlackRock has 237,000 Bitcoin. And they ain't stopping either. They are not slowing down. So that's kind of what today is going to be talking about in terms of that. Actually, the BlackRock is going to be involved in both the best case and the worst case, I think. So the next one here, Genesis. They ended up paying $21 million in a fine to the SEC for selling unregistered securities, so cryptos. It was from their crypto earn program, where people could stake cryptos within their wallets, and they would get paid a fee. I'm sure some people in this chat stake their cryptos. So they ended up paying a $21 million fine for their unregistered securities to the SEC. But one thing I did want to kind of go a little bit further into this is that in terms of cryptos, I think that's one thing to keep in mind. And with cryptos, people, how can I say this? They are unregistered securities. That's important to note. Bitcoin is a commodity, right? So it's going to be treated much differently. It already is. There's an ETF available. Bitcoin is much different than all the other cryptos. The other ones are unregistered securities. And so what does that mean? It means it's going to be treated differently for taxes. If you claim it, if you dispose of it, and you have a capital gain, it's going to be treated differently than the Bitcoin. The second one is that because they are unregistered, at any day, Gary Gensler could decide that we're going to shut this exchange down, like Kraken, Binance, Coinbase. We're going to shut this exchange down because they're selling unregistered securities. And so when that happens, the main thing that's going to happen there is, if you're holding a cryptocurrency and it already has a very low volume to begin with, they shut down an exchange, you're going to have a very hard time selling that. Not only finding a place to sell it, but finding buyers to sell it. Because as soon as these tokens get taken off the exchanges, their volume goes way down. So you're going to get caught holding a bag of literal dog shit. At any day, somebody can come underneath you and take that. That's the definition of rugging, right? That's a pretty common phrase within Bitcoin. You get rug pulled. So at any day, your wealth within these cryptocurrencies kind of depend on what Gary Gensler wants to do, which is never a situation you want to be in. So something to consider. If you do have any Bitcoin or if you do have any cryptos, what I would be doing today is exchanging all of them for Bitcoin or exchanging them all for USDT, which you can use later trade for Bitcoin. Okay, I'm going to give Francis a little zap there for showing up today. Rick Costa, I see as well. Holy cow, zap.stream is going. Maybe we'll just cut down the feed for YouTube eventually here. God, I love that. It's so cool that you can just send Bitcoin like that. Couple zaps flying around in zap.stream. Love that. There we go. Look at this. Jerry Loves Freedom. I gave you a shout out on my channel. Love the show, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you. What's your channel? I'll give it a shout out right now. Is this your channel right now? Jerry Loves Freedom. Pal. Hello, pal. That's a great name too. Maybe it's short for something. I call Arnie pal. Should have seen Arnie this morning. He started doing this thing every morning. I go for a shower. I come downstairs, get ready for the show. And he spends about 5 minutes before I'm, making coffee and getting ready to come in here. He spends 5 minutes chasing me and biting at my ankles. Not hard, just playfully, because he doesn't want me to come and shut the door on him. So he tries everything he can to try to prevent that from happening, but we can't do that. Okay, Jerry Loves Freedom. There you go. Quick plug for his account. I'm not sure what he talks about, but if you are somebody who likes supporting other Bitcoiners and other freedom lovers, go give Jerry a follow on there. Pal says, like ADA, perfect example of that. Like ADA. ADA has a staking program, and I don't know the ins and outs of ADA very well. I did own some. I traded it for Bitcoin, like I have with most. So I don't know. That Charles Hodgkin guy really gives me the creeps for some reason. Just seems like a weirdo. He has like a lobster on his fucking mic. Speaking of that, maybe I'll set my new goal as getting a new mic. I've had this mic for about 3 years or 4 years, so it's probably time for a new one. Considering I do this every morning, it's probably a good investment. Pomp says Bitcoin is at 1 million, but still no payment adoption yet. What's the next big move? Bitcoin is at 1 million, or when it becomes 1 million? I think he means when it becomes 1 million. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a couple minutes here. Bitcoin is for everybody, even our enemies. I'm happy to see them pump my bags. Just don't panic sell when they dump. Correct. That's one thing I mentioned on yesterday's show too, is that the price crashed. It bothers me that Wall Street still has the ability to manipulate Bitcoin, but at the same time, it is a win-win for us. And it's a win-win because when it goes up, when they manipulate it upwards, we get wealthier. When they manipulate it downwards, we can buy cheaper Bitcoin. We get more sats for our dollars. And if you're anything like me, I will buy Bitcoin at any price. Any price. Doesn't matter. We could be at 15,000, which we were buying at. We could be at 500,000. It doesn't matter. Bitcoin is better than holding fiat. That's it. Everything else is irrelevant. Last thing here that I want to touch on was Max Kaiser. He sent out a tweet yesterday. I'm going to bring it up here, actually. Where are you, Max? Yikes. So this is a tweet from Max Kaiser yesterday. So this is a quote tweet of Zero Hedge, which says Bank of Japan finally kills the world's last negative interest rate. The yen weakens. And then Max comments on it saying, This has been the linchpin currency in the global free money carry trade for 30 years. The raise in rates in Japan will be seen by future historians as the seminal moment in the slow collapse of the modern central bank era. That's a pretty bold claim. But at the same time, it makes a lot of sense. So the Bank of Japan finally dropped their interest, or they raised their rates for the first time since 2007. This is the first time that they've raised their rates since 2007. The Japan economy, the bank, I think it's one of the biggest in the world. And I did see that they were also considering buying some Bitcoin with their fund, with the largest fund in the world within Japan. So something happening there. Don't know what it is, but they're raising rates. I think that, as Max says here, that's going to have a ripple effect across the whole world. And they're thinking about buying Bitcoin. And anybody who's not thinking about buying Bitcoin is going to be destroyed in the next 10 years. For big corporations and countries and stuff. Anyways. So that's it. That's the news for today. Big shout out to Bitcoin News for sponsoring the show. It's good to see that they're doing really great stuff over there. They got every day. That's where I check for the news, and they're supporting the small Bitcoin channels like this one, focused on Bitcoin only. So that's it for the news. We can move on to the meat and potatoes of the show. Let's check out this comment though first. Pal says, anyone care to speculate to what extent will a 4-year halving cycle persist? With consideration that 95% of Bitcoin is already mined and the ETF Sovereign Wealth Fund purchases dwarf current Bitcoin incoming. So that's kind of a pretty hot topic in the Bitcoin. Maybe I'll leave that up there. It's kind of a hot topic in the Bitcoin world right now. I think he means that because 95% of Bitcoin has already been mined, it's going to have very little impact on future halvings. But kind of my theory on that is that I think that I agree with Michael Saylor in the sense that I do think that when that Bitcoin ETF was approved in January, that was the day where everything changed. That's where it went from retail to Wall Street and to the world. That's where everything changed back in January 2024. So I do think that this next bull run essentially is going to last 10 years, as Michael Saylor says. I do think that. There's going to be drops. I just don't think they're going to be as bad as they've been before, simply because the floor is so solid right now. The demand is going to continue to increase 10, 100-fold. The supply is going to continue to shrink. And so I do think that in terms of that, this next bull run is going to last about 10 years. After that, so going back to his point here, he's saying that it shouldn't go up and down as much in terms of the ups in the halving versus the downs in the halving, because the majority of Bitcoin has already been mined. But as we move forward here, we're going to stop pricing things in Bitcoin. We're going to stop paying attention to the price of Bitcoin. We're going to start paying attention to the price of sats. I think once we get to about maybe $1 million per Bitcoin, that's when it's going to switch to sats. I think that's what it was. Kind of my logic there is that at 1-to-1, $1 to 1 sat, that's going to be $100 million Bitcoin. So when it gets to 1 cent equals 1 sat, I think that's $1 million per Bitcoin. I think that's when it happens. I think that's when we start pricing things in sats instead of looking at the price of Bitcoin. So anyways, what I'm saying there is that even though the Bitcoin have been mined, the majority of the Bitcoin have been mined, once we make that shift to start looking at the price of sats instead of Bitcoin, it's going to change the way people even look at the halving and the mining. 1 Bitcoin is going to be worth so much in the future that we're not going to be talking about it. It's going to be like a non-issue. It's going to be priced in sats. So I do think that, yes, the halving cycle will persist. I think that the volatility will go down over time simply because of that, because there's much more people involved and countries involved. But I do think it will continue to happen. I just think we're going to change the way we look at Bitcoin and the way we price it. So, because doesn't that make sense to you as just like human psychology? Once 1 cent equals 1 sat, I think that's what's going to show up in like the tickers. It's going to be sats and not Bitcoin. So there you go. Good question, pal. Okay. So big shout out to everybody once again in the Zap stream. I know I keep talking about it, but it's pretty cool. We got a couple people in there. The chat's going, and we're 1,500 sats into my goal of getting a new snowblower. So check that out. It's a lot of fun. I like it. Yes, unit bias is definitely something we need to overcome. I agree with that. But that's everything. And I think that even once we get to, so this is kind of my theory on it. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I'm glad we brought this up. I was thinking about this yesterday, and unit bias, I think that there's going to be a transition there. Similar to like we have a transition with Twitter and X. Every time there's a change in people's lives, it takes a while for people to catch on. And so I think that we're going to start pricing Bitcoin in sats versus Bitcoin once it hits 1 million, because that's when 1 cent will equal 1 sat. But even when that happens, I think that there's going to be a delay there, because people are still going to have it in their head that Bitcoin's $1 million and I'll never get into it. It's too impossible to get a Bitcoin. But slowly over the next cycle, people will make that shift to sats. So I do think we're a couple of cycles away from that happening, just in terms of us reaching 1 million per Bitcoin and then making that transition after that into sats. But everything takes time. We know that. So Jason says, Princes of the End documentary on the currency manipulation by Japan. I haven't seen this documentary, but the currency manipulation by Japan is a worldwide problem. It's definitely not specific to Japan. They're kind of one of the tools that the world uses to control the currencies and the printing and the interest rates. There's a lot of different tools that they have in terms of how they can manipulate everything, including some offshore accounts in what's the islands where they don't have to pay any tax. Somebody will know. This is a great point from Crypto Heathen. That will also reset the perspective on unit bias, which currently keeps a lot of non-Bitcoiners out since they think it's too expensive. Bingo. Because think about that. As we get closer to $1 million per Bitcoin, that's just going to keep scaring people away. It's going to keep scaring people away because people already feel that. It's already $70,000 or $60,000. And people just don't even take time to learn about it because they're like, I'll never be able to afford a Bitcoin. What's even the point? And as that goes up, it's going to become even worse. It's going to get people excited, but they're still not going to take the time to figure it out. But once we get to that sat pricing, and people are going to see it like a penny stock almost, right? So they're going to say, oh, I can get a sat for a penny, and then I can get 100 sats for $1. I'm going to start doing that. It makes a lot more sense. They think that they can get more, when in reality today they can go through the exact same thing. They just haven't made that. It hasn't clicked for them in their head yet. So I agree with that strongly. Zombie Jose in the Zap stream says 4-year cycles are over. I kind of think they are too, honestly. They're still going to happen, but it's going to be much less of a swing. Just my perspective, my opinion. And he says people are gobbling up the coins. It's over for the non-believers. It is. And so let's get into that. That's a good segue into this next part. So the point of the show today, we're already 40 minutes into it. I don't know how these shows get so far away from me. Pal says when Bitcoin reaches 100,000, $1 will get you 10,000 sats. That's crazy. Okay, so let's check this out here. Rick says, I tried sending a zap, but not sure I did it right. It looks like, I don't know how you see it on here for me, but it looks like there has been some zaps coming in. So it probably worked, Rick. So thank you, everybody who's been in the Zap.stream, sending a couple zaps in. Very much appreciated. It cost me a little bit to use Zap.stream because they are not like YouTube. They don't have ads. They don't have all the bullshit that YouTube has. So I do have to pay a little bit to use Zap.stream. So it's nice. I think it's a good offering for people. Moose Jaw Bucks. Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Moose Jaw time today. Anyways, let's keep it rolling here. The main point of the show today is we're going to walk through, I love doing these thought experiments. We're going to walk through the best case scenario in terms of what happens with Bitcoin, and we're going to walk through the worst case scenario in terms of what happens with Bitcoin. So I am going to leave it up to you guys. Whatever you want to talk about first, best or worst, the first comment that comes into either chat here is what we're going to talk about first. So I'll get things ready to go. Do we want to talk about the worst case for Bitcoin or the best case for Bitcoin? That is the question, and I'm leaving it up to you. Palm says gold is gold, whether it's 1 gram or 1 kilogram. Same mindset applies to Bitcoin. Exactly. And Jerry says, I have a series on my channel called Satoshi Saturdays that I talk about that exact thing. There we go. There we go. Love that. Rock and Roll says, what do you think with the CBDCs they will roll out? Will that only accelerate, especially no KYC? What do you think with the CBDCs they will roll out? Will that only accelerate? Oh, I think it'll accelerate Bitcoin for sure. I think that that's kind of the nice thing is that with everything happening in the world in the last couple of years, people are much more hesitant to trust the government, to trust that they haven't fully realized that Bitcoin is the answer to that yet. People understand the fact that our money is something's wrong with our money. And I don't think that they're going to have the trust in people. I think that they'll probably roll it out. I think it'll be a disaster. I think that, don't know what that was. I think it'll be a disaster. And I think it'll turn people off. I think they'll probably implement people paying taxes in it. That'll probably be the only thing that they can force people to do. And then people will just be like, okay, well, am I going to pay tax? I don't know. So I think it'll be a disaster. Doesn't matter if it's $100K or $1 million per Bitcoin. It's a form of money that cannot be debased no matter what. I saw, I wish I could bring it up right now, but I saw a meme the other day that said, if Bitcoin is the money, then you can't lose money on Bitcoin. It's a good point. That is kind of my opinion on it too. It's like the fiat price of Bitcoin is so irrelevant. You don't want to become rich in fiat. You want to become rich in Bitcoin, right? That's the point of the show. So let's start with the worst case for Bitcoin. I think we'll do that. And I have about 4 or 5 things here. I think this is going to be kind of a good thought experiment to go through. I don't know how long this will take. So hopefully you can dedicate the next 15 minutes to sticking around here. But this is the worst case. I ran through a couple different things. I went down a couple different trails in my head in terms of what is the worst case that could happen with Bitcoin and what is the best case that could happen with Bitcoin. So let's talk about these because these are a couple things that most people say whenever you bring up Bitcoin. There's always some sort of reason why it won't work. And so I got a couple here we're going to walk through. The first one is the power goes out. That's a very common worst case scenario for Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, that would be horrific for Bitcoin if the power went out. But at the same time, if the power goes out, Bitcoin is going to be the least of our worries, especially if it's out indefinitely. If Bitcoin goes, or if the power goes out for a couple weeks, your Bitcoin is going to be fine. If you keep it on a cold storage device that you have the keys for, when the power comes back on, you're still going to have the exact same amount of Bitcoin. If it goes out for a year or two, might be a different story. But I think the world will be completely screwed at that point if we have no power for a year or two or no internet for a year or two. So that's probably like worst case. I I just think that it's so small of a chance that that actually happens that it's not even worth talking about. Because if the internet goes out for a year or two, money, you could have as many gold coins in your safe as you want to. That's not going to buy shit. It's not going to buy shit. What you'll need there is food, shelter, probably, and some ammo. That was pretty fucking convenient timing. We're back. I don't know where I ended, but the point of that is that gold's not going to buy you anything. Silver's not going to buy you anything. You're going to want food and you're going to want some protection. So that's the power goes out. The next one is worst case, Putin created it. That's a lot of people's theory on it. I'm sure you've seen Dan Pena or whatever his name is. Bitcoin's going to go to zero when people find out who created Bitcoin. Well, it doesn't really matter who created Bitcoin because, for one, every Bitcoin that's been put into circulation, that's been mined, has done so using the proof of work protocol. There was never an instance where Bitcoin was created and they sent it out to their friends as a initial coin offering, or they let their buddies buy it before everybody else could. There was no benefit to the person who created it. They mined the first Bitcoin. They have the wallet of 1 million Bitcoin in it. But it doesn't really matter who created it to me, because even with that million Bitcoin, it's still insignificant in terms of the total Bitcoin, right? And people know what that wallet is. If it moves, I'm sure there'll be a lot of speculation in terms of who it was. But I mean, if Putin created Bitcoin, what's the worst thing that happens with that? You have it. He has some. I'm sure every country on earth will have some. They just invented it. And I think that whoever did create it should have some sort of benefit for that without having a face to it. Right? Oh, I don't know. We got a lot of questions going on in the zap.stream. Good to see. It says, good morning. I couldn't zap either. Maybe I don't have a wallet set up for this. Should, because I can zap people. And it says that there's some sats coming in. So I don't know. Maybe it's on different end. Anyways, so that's Putin created it. Worst case, I don't know. I couldn't care less who created it. I hope we never find out who created Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is for everybody. I think that the other worst case would be that governments start banning exchanges for people to buy and sell Bitcoin. And I do think this could happen. I do think it will happen. But in terms of that, it's very easy to, the world's so connected now. Let's walk through this and say that Trudeau decided that he's going to ban every exchange in Canada from people buying Bitcoin. So what happens with that? Well, I've put myself in a position where I'm on Nostr. I have a YouTube channel, and I could probably find somebody in a different country that's willing to sell me Bitcoin quite easily. So that would have to be a coordinated effort with every government on earth, and they would have to shut down the exchanges all at the exact same time. Is that likely? I would say almost a 0% chance of that happening. But there are still ways that you could buy Bitcoin. And the other aspect of that is I don't think that we're going to be buying Bitcoin forever. I think we probably have another 5 or 10 years where people are actually buying Bitcoin instead of earning Bitcoin. And once that shift happens where people are getting paid in Bitcoin instead of dollars, that's game over for the fiat dollar. So it'll be a setback. All of these will be setbacks in the short term, but long term, it'll have no impact on Bitcoin. Another worst case would be that Apple Store decides that they're going to ban wallets. I do think that this will be a big hurdle for a lot of people who are new to Bitcoin if you can't just go to the App Store and download a wallet within there. So if the App Store decided that they're going to ban all Bitcoin, that would be a problem for sure. But at the same time, a couple things there. That would only slow it down because people would start using Android phones, which are much more open source and less control, less centralization over the Android phones. But at the same time, Tim Apple, which is the CEO of Apple, he has gone on mainstream news and said that he actually owns Bitcoin. So he has skin in the game. He wants Bitcoin to succeed. And I have zero doubt in my mind that Apple will eventually announce that they're not only owning Bitcoin with their cash, their treasuries, but they're going to be implementing wallets into their phones. It's just natural progression with technology. Apple does it every single time. They wait for the first person to walk through the door and they get shot, and then Apple comes in. So Apple waits for everybody else to work out the kinks, to figure things out, and then they implement it. They make it very easy for people to use, and they take it to the mainstream. So Apple owns Bitcoin. Apple will own Bitcoin, and I don't think there's a chance that they actually ban the apps. But that would be another big hurdle for us, is if they ban the Bitcoin wallets. Okay, let's take a little bit of a breath here. Pal says people will freak out with no cash. Bitcoin will quickly be the obvious choice. I think that Bitcoin is the new cash. It has every characteristic of cash. And I've talked about that before on the show. That's what Bitcoin was designed to be: peer-to-peer, electronic cash, not currency, cash. It has the exact same characteristics. And this is kind of what I explained to my hairdresser, who loves cash, obviously. And so I explained the similarities between Bitcoin and cash, and how it's unstoppable money. Nobody can say yes or no to you wanting to spend your Bitcoin. Mike Dooley, look at that. Hi from England. Liking your laid back vibe. Definitely in Bitcoin for the long term. Cheers, man. Cheers, Mike. That's a great name, Mike Dooley. I'm glad to have you here today. In England, it would be probably 4:00 p.m. Glad to have you, Mike, and glad to have everybody here today. Lots of new faces in the chat today. Worst case, you caught none. I got a few. I just don't think they're very likely, but it's still important to talk about. And Brennan says, remember when the Bitcoin white paper was discovered on an Apple device as a template? Yes, that wasn't that long ago. That was about 6 months, maybe a year ago. And Pomp says Tim Cook is Satoshi. I don't know about that one. I don't get good vibes from Tim Apple myself. So anyways, that's kind of the four main ones that I had that could happen in terms of worst case. But the thing that I believe would be the absolute worst case for Bitcoin has nothing to do with governments, has nothing to do with Apple, has nothing to do with Putin, has everything to do with us. I think that the worst thing that could happen to Bitcoin is that we fuck it up. We find a way to continue to ignore it, to continue listening to the mainstream news, continue taking advice from these people who do not have our best interests in mind, and we let Bitcoin fall. People stop using it. The demand for it drops. People, it gets swallowed up by BlackRock. It becomes an investment tool and a manipulation tool for them. We have the ability today to fuck it up, because even at this stage, the biggest players in the game, Michael Saylor, BlackRock's, they still have a very small percentage of this. And the only thing that's going to ruin Bitcoin, the worst case for Bitcoin, is that it's going to be overtaken by these big companies, and it's no longer going to be used as cash anymore. And how that's going to happen is people are going to get too greedy. They're going to be too short-term thinking. They're going to see the price go up to 200,000, 300,000, a million, and they're going to start selling their Bitcoin to BlackRock, and then it's going to be done. It's going to be very short-term fiat logic that's going to ruin Bitcoin. That's the worst case. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen. So it has nothing to do with Bitcoin screwing up. It has nothing to do with anybody else, and everything to do with us. We could be the worst thing that happens to Bitcoin if we get too greedy and start chasing dumb shit. That's the worst case. Rock and Roll says, Steve Woz, Apple's co-founder, said, don't shitcoin, there is only one Bitcoin. Yes. Okay, check in quickly back with, I do see a couple people in there that I can't zap. I don't know who that is. NPub one F7 can't zap you. It's not connected. So maybe that wall's not connected. Anyways, let's talk about the best case scenario with Bitcoin. We got about 5 minutes left before we got our hour in. I don't know how these shows turned into an hour long, but anyways, best case scenario here. This is my dream for Bitcoin. Adoption continues to grow. The price keeps running up. It brings in new people every single day. And the adoption continues to grow from individuals, from businesses. That's the best case. And then once we get a little bit further, adoption grows significantly based on that. After this halving cycle, the best case would be that BlackRock or Coinbase get subpoenaed and they get in trouble from the government or from the governing body. They get all their Bitcoin seized from whatever crimes they've committed in the past, BlackRock especially. But they get all their assets frozen, seized, and swallowed up. So BlackRock gets all their Bitcoin taken away from them. That's going to cause a huge dip in price so we can get more of it. Those Bitcoin will be taken off of the available supply. I'm sure they'll live within some sort of governing body structure for 5 or 10 years as they sort it out. So the actual supply goes down. Our Bitcoin becomes more valuable. BlackRock has zero influence. They're completely gone out of the equation. And we can carry on with our life as we were. That's the best case. And I'm sure that'll piss a lot of people off, especially those who hold different ETFs in Bitcoin. But I do think that not only is that a possible scenario, that would be huge for Bitcoin. Because even though BlackRock and MicroStrategy are both huge players in Bitcoin, they both have 1% each of Bitcoin. BlackRock and MicroStrategy are much different in terms of what they want to do with Bitcoin. Coinbase, especially. Coinbase is a very big problem for us, honestly. And so they're going to play games with the government. They're going to listen to their overlords, and they're going to continue to allow price manipulation within Bitcoin. They're not on team Bitcoin. They're on team government and team bad guy, we'll call it. MicroStrategy, on the other hand, they are adopting Bitcoin. They're building Bitcoin companies or projects within Bitcoin that's actually going to move Bitcoin adoption ahead. So I have no issues with MicroStrategy. I think they're doing everything right. I think they're going to be a net positive, significant net positive for Bitcoin. But if we can see something like BlackRock or Coinbase get subpoenaed, get their assets seized, including their Bitcoin, that would be the best possible scenario for Bitcoin. Could it happen? Who knows? Who knows? And Powell says, according to Jeff Booth, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, it will continue to reprice everything that's in fiat. Amen to that. Okay. So there's lots going on in Zap.stream, which is good to see. It seems like a few of our pals on there, our regular pals, are using it and trying to figure it out, which is good to see. One thing you have to do with, you can connect Zap.stream with your Nostr account, or you can just create your own profile. You don't need Nostr to use it. And then you connect it to your LB account, which I have had issues with, but it seems to be working really good for me lately. So I can send zaps on here. We can receive zaps. It's a pretty cool place to be. So Jose says Coinbase is trash, horrible company, low integrity scammers. I agree with that. If you have a choice between using Coinbase and any other exchange, make sure you're using any other exchange. Canadians, Jose says Canadians might be leading the way, to be honest. I'm down here in the Rocky Mountains of the US looking up, admiring the Canadians. That's interesting. I do see a lot happening here in Canada. Jeff Booth is Canadian. BTC Sessions is Canadian. There's a lot of great mining companies in Canada. Who else is? Lawrence Lepard, I think, is Canadian. There's an actual movement happening here in Canada, and the majority of people aren't aware of it. But the natural resources that we have in Canada, we should be the most abundant country on earth if we had somebody in charge who knew what they were doing. Rock and Roll says BlackRock owns the government. I agree with that. The grinder is in the house. Good to see that in the zap.stream. I'll give a little zap. This is a lot of fun. Nothing too serious. Just people having fun with money, call it. A comment from Brennan in here. This is a good point. I said this a couple weeks ago on the show as well. Check the tapes. But this is my prediction as well. I think that this is what's going to cause the next bear run. All of the bear runs so far, bear markets have been official, in my opinion. And I think that everything within Bitcoin has been by design from start to now. And so Satoshi foresaw all of this happening, that there's going to be attacks on Bitcoin. I do think that eventually they're going to run out of bullets though. They only have so many tools that they can use here. And I do think that the last couple bear markets were artificial, caused by the government trying to crash the price of Bitcoin. And I do think that this is going to be the net. I have a slightly different prediction here, but Brennan says my prediction is that Coinbase mishandles the keys and fumbles encryption. All coins are stolen or locked for eternity. That is kind of best case scenario. I do think that that's going to cause the next bear market is that Coinbase is going to get hacked or Coinbase is going to lose their coins. They're going to say it's going to crash the price. The ETFs are going to go down. Everybody's going to be in panic. But then Bitcoin is going to do what it has done every time it's faced a challenge like that, and it's going to come back. I do think that is the next trigger. After this halving cycle will be Coinbase going down. Jason says he can't see Brennan's chat. You know what? He's probably watching on the other channel. So I use the other channel just for Patreon stuff and for I've just been streaming each show to there. So he might be in the Bitcoin Journey channel, which I created. Just kind of, I talk about a lot of somewhat controversial things on here. So if this account ever does go down, I'm trying to build up a little bit of a base within the other one. So I think the other one's called T.Joran Bitcoin Journey. And of course, things start getting choppy as I start talking about that. So if you don't mind, go check out the backup channel as well. I'm guessing that's where Brennan's watching it from. And then, so if anything ever goes down, I will be on, if this YouTube channel ever happened to go down, if they give me a strike or whatever, I will be going on to zap.stream. I'll obviously be on nostr, and I'll be using the Bitcoin Journey backup YouTube channel. So if you got time, if you remember today, head over there, search for it, and subscribe to that one as well. So that's it. We're over an hour here. I don't know how this happens every day, but it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love doing these shows and just going through different scenarios because that's what we can do. I think you can only take so much technical talk and other stuff. We just kind of have to have some fun, talk through different things, and I think that's how we best prepare for what's coming. Canadians will adopt Bitcoin more rapidly because the loonie is declining faster. Yep. Um, my big my big thing with that is that as much as I cannot stand Trudeau, I can't stand his face. I can't stand listening to him. I don't listen to him at all. If he's on anything, I shut it off. But one thing I will say about Trudeau is that he's doing good work for Bitcoin. He's doing great work because if Trudeau came out and started endorsing Bitcoin, I would have second thoughts. But he's printing money. He's making people feel what's wrong with our monetary system right now with the cost of everything in Canada. And he's actually his opposition, which is another POS politician, Pierre Poilievre. He's a Bitcoin advocate. He's been pretty quiet lately though, which is kind of weird. But they've been going back and forth with the Bitcoin stuff. So I think Trudeau is a net positive for Bitcoin, believe it or not. He's couldn't be more of a negative for Canada overall. But in terms of people adopting Bitcoin, in terms of our currency depreciating every single day, we can thank Justin Trudeau for that. So it seems like the Zap dot stream was a lot more actionable today, action packed. There's 19 people watching there, actually more than YouTube right now. So big shout out to Zap dot stream. There you go. Brennan says, this is a good comment to leave on. So that I really appreciate this channel and the members. It's really hard to find clear and pure Bitcoin thought. I do agree with you, Brennan. And one thing, I'll say two things on that. One thing, I do think that there are a lot of really good Bitcoiners out there. I shouldn't say a lot of them, but there are good ones out there for sure that I trust. They do a show about every week. I understand they got a lot of other stuff going on in their lives. This show is every day, every morning for the last 4 months. Pretty much, we've done it every morning at the same time. It's awesome to have so many people in the chat. I think that's another net positive for the show. People are able to interact live on the show. The second thing is that nothing's really too technical on here. We started the show talking about how Bitcoin analytics, how far you can get into the charts and obsess over that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's really just thinking logically. Bitcoin is basically logic. It's a much better money. It's a much better way of thinking, and it will change every aspect of your life if you further you get into it. So I appreciate Brennan. I appreciate everybody being here. Tomorrow, let's get a little bit more people on the stream. Let's keep that train rolling. Because like I said, I really don't trust YouTube at the end of the day. I've had a lot of issues with them, in terms of they make it very hard for small creators to make anything of themselves on YouTube. They don't promote their stuff. They really stomp down on their views and their subscribers and their total hours watched. It's crazy. I'll go into after the show, I'll go in or later on today, I'll go into the analytics on YouTube, and it'll say that there's about 40 hours of views, of hours watched on there. And then I'll check back once YouTube's done its review of their using their AI tools, they review it, and all of a sudden I have like 5 hours watched because all of their ads and all their payouts are actually based on hours watched. And so they using their reviews, they determine that a lot of you people are bots. That's their review of it. So they don't count those hours. So it drops literally from 40 or 50 hours down to 5 or 10 hours per show. It's insane. And so the more we can focus on the nosters, the more we can focus on the Zap dot streams, we can just say, like, literally, "Fuck off to the old system. We just don't need you anymore. These systems are being built. They're already in place. All we need to do is just use them." So with that, another new face in the chat, Christopher, my man from Louisiana. Love that. Hello from we're glad to have the Americans, in the chat and in life. They've done a pretty good job of keeping us safe through the years. I think the one thing that, has kept the world somewhat free is America and the protection that they have in terms of their weapons, we'll say. So, I do talk a lot about it a lot. I do talk a lot of stuff on YouTube as much as I can. There's a line there though. And so one thing I do is I've been doing pretty much 2 or 3 shows a week on living in the future. So with that, living in the future, it's you can find a link in the description. It's the Patreon. It's $5 a month. You can do a 7-day free trial. It gets you access to all the after shows where we are literally living in the future. We're pretending that one sat is $1. We're doing everything we can to become better Bitcoiners, to build businesses within Bitcoin, and really take advantage of this time in history. And grow. We got a group chat going on, and we're still looking to fill the first 44 spots, the founders essentially of the Living in the Future tier, which is going to come with some pretty good benefits down the road. So If you've been considering, make sure you get in on one of the first 44 spots. You will not regret that. And pretty cool. If you are somebody out there who feels kind of alone in the Bitcoin world, as a lot of us do and have, if you join that, you get entered into the group chat, which is a absolute free for all in there. But it's pretty cool. It's nice to chat back and forth, to share ideas, to share resources. So that's one thing I would say. If you are somebody who kind of feels alone in the Bitcoin world, consider joining that. I do think that the cost of it alone, in terms of the network, will be worth it, and it's going up because I kind of undervalued the network aspect of it. It's kind of cool. So with that, you also get a one-on-one kind of private line of communication with me. If you have any questions, if you run into anything, you can not only send a message to the group chat, but you can also message me privately. So something to consider there. It has been growing. The more it grows, the more benefit everybody's going to get from it. So that's how I want to leave the show today. Consider that. And Bren says, all my friends think I'm crazy. And that's why I think that it is important. It's important to have a platform like that. We obviously can't just let everybody into it for spam reasons. So you have to have some skin in the game there. The idea, though, is that we're going to build things within Bitcoin, different ventures. And the idea there is that you want to actually become part of some of those. You earn more in Bitcoin every month than you actually pay in the small membership fee for that. So that's kind of a longer term vision of it. But we still got to build there. We still got to keep things going. Kieran is in the chat. Good morning, Kieran. I'll give him a little zap. I see Noah's also in there. I'll give her a zap. Good to see you. It's been probably our longest show that hasn't been on the Living in the Future one. So I appreciate Kieran very much for creating such a great platform. It's nice to see so many people were in there. There was more people in Zap than there was in the YouTube show today. So that is incredible. Big shout out to Kieran. Big shout out to Zap.stream. And big shout out to you. We are winning. We are right about Bitcoin. And it's not going away. The best thing you can do is dedicate your time and energy to buying as much Bitcoin and earning as much Bitcoin as you possibly can in the coming years. And your great grandkids will respect you and thank you for that. So with that, thanks everybody once again for tuning in. On your way out, maybe press the like button if you feel like it. If not, we'll see you right back here first thing tomorrow morning for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, send them to 88sats@proton.me. If you have any questions for the show, if you have any ideas, questions for me, 88sats@proton.me. And we'll see you right back here first thing tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.